Whether you were a volunteer coach or you were a high performance coach at the top level, you were burning out for the same reason.
Coaches, I'm excited to welcome Stephen Maxwell to the podcast today. Stephen is the coach and match official education manager for Cricket Ireland, bringing over 22 years of experience in coaching and development across professional soccer, rugby, and Gaelic games. He's the founder of No Other Game Around, a consultancy that partners with teams from high school to the professional level to design environments where performance and well-being work in unison. A researcher in coach self-care, Stephen specializes in helping leaders avoid burnout by rediscovering their purpose and mastering the human side of performance. In this episode, we're going to be discussing coach burnout and how to stop and prevent it, tips for emotional regulation and self-care, self-reflection, and navigating losing seasons. Now to the show. Coaches, excited to welcome Stephen Maxwell to the podcast today. I was just reading on your website, and there was a sentence that stood out to me just around what you guys do. You guys say you design environments where purpose, performance, and well-being work together, not in competition. Will you say more about that?
Coach education or coach development over the last few years has shifted away from the coach being a technician into more so the coach as a person and a learner. So coach education, coach development, self-care, which I'm very passionate about and supporting coaches, and supporting them to understand their coaching purpose is now should be at the forefront of coach development. So setting up the business, that's kind of our focus. And obviously because leadership and learning is so important in coaching, we're now actually starting to bring that into private business and supporting private businesses to create team environments, whether it's, it could be human resources and how to create a team within human resources, IT management, how do we create a team when everybody's in their own little bubble in front of their laptops or their computers, showing them how to create an environment that suits their unique environments. It's purely a hobby for me. I'm very passionate about dealing with people, and it doesn't matter if it's sport or business. Coaching is coaching people, whether it's sport or business.
Yeah, helping others grow. I love that. You said a couple things I want to talk more about. The first thing I want to talk about is helping coaches find their purpose. Will you say more about that? How are you helping coaches do that? I think it's so foundational, not just in coaching sport, in any area of your life, leadership, etc. But say more about how you found success helping coaches find that purpose.
I suppose it's been born out of my research. So I spent the last 3 years researching self-care for coaches. We have an awful lot of coaches at all aspects of the game, from grassroots all the way to high performance, burning out. And one of the main reasons coaches are burning out is because they lose their understanding of their purpose. So why are they coaching in the first place? So when we start playing the game we love when we're children, it's because we love the game, whether it's baseball, football, etc. And when we start coaching, we have a reason why we begin coaching. It might be because our child has started to play and we're there to support their growth and development. Then we may move into a high performance environment, and our why and our purpose may change. But it's really bringing coaches back down to the fundamentals. Why did you get involved in coaching? What is your purpose? And we support them to develop their own philosophy. So we really get them to look at what are your key values? What's really important to you? And that's how you're going to coach. Because when it comes down to it, when we're making really important decisions as coaches, it comes back to our own core values. Everybody has unique values that are just for them. My own key values would be courage, empathy, and appreciation. Your key values or your core values may be slightly different, or they might be the same, but our definitions in regards to what my core values are may be different to yours. And that supports me in terms of my purpose to continue coaching long term. And our role in No Other Game Around is to make sure we're creating a sustainable environment for coaches based on their purpose. So it's unique, it's a very individual thing for everybody, and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, I want to hear you say more too about your research into why coaches are burning out. The main thing you share there is they get disconnected from their purpose. Many of us, we get into it, with a fairly clear purpose. Not everyone. Sometimes it's just, hey, I love it. I played. It's just the next step. I don't really know why I'm doing it, but I am. There's definitely some of that. And I think there's a lot of coaches that they do get into it because they want to serve athletes. Their life was shaped in sport. They want to be that, whatever it may be. But then again, sport happens, life's hard, etc. The environment is tough, and you get disconnected from that purpose, and it can lead to burnout. But what else? What are these other factors that are pushing coaches to burnout? Because you're right, it's rampant everywhere at all the levels. Coaches are just like, I can't do it anymore. It's too much.
So one of the eye-opening aspects for me through the research was that whether you were a volunteer coach or you were a high-performance coach at the top level, you were burning out for the same reasons.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Time management is always a big one. There's not, I meet coaches. I just don't have enough time, Stephen. I can't look after myself. I don't have time in the day. And it's a lack of self-awareness. That's the key factor in burnout, is a lack of self-awareness. There is 168 hours in every single week. There's 24 hours in every single day. We can find time if we're focused. So when we sit down with coaches, we've got a coach working at the championship level in England in football. It's ruthless. If he loses 6 or 7 games in a row, he may lose his job. So it's all consuming. So what I support him to do is purely just manage his time. I don't talk about X's and O's. We don't talk about his relationship with his players. I support him to manage his time so he can refill his cup, to give him back energy, things that he really enjoys that energize him, so then he can focus on his players and his team. So examples will be spending time with his kids. It could be just 1 hour a day, but it's completely 100% focused for 60 minutes on his children. Going for a walk with his wife. They can keep that relationship and that candle burning really, really strong. Like you see it in American sports, for example, showcase the grind for the coaches all the time. If you look at the NFL, the coaches are sleeping in the stadium. For me, this blows my mind. That is not self-care. How are we being good role models as coaches if we're sleeping in our offices when the players are going home, re-energizing, and then we have to stand in front of those players again after working a 20-hour day? It's just not sustainable. So creating environments, supporting coaches to create a coaching process that allows them to control their environments. And although it's coaching process, your self-care comes into that. We showcase time where you can build family time and what gives you energy. So Luke, for example, what energizes you every day? And whatever that is, that's what we're going to make time in a week over 100.
Yeah, that's good. It's easy to, like you said, there can be kind of the lack of self-awareness, or just I would say maybe too, just a lack of intentionality. Like if you don't set aside time for these things, well, then you're going to keep feeling like this. But you actually can decide, no, for this 1 hour, I'm putting my phone away, I'm closing my laptop, I'm at home with my kids, and I'll tell the other people too, hey, I'm taking an hour. I think almost everyone in every organization would have deep respect for that too, even if you're the leader and at the top. Yeah, no, we get it. We can't all do this all the time and only this. And to your point, like, yeah, you need to spend time with your wife. That relationship's more important than this job. Hopefully it is to you, right? I think we could all sit there and say, like, yeah, at the end of my life, I want to have a great relationship with my spouse still, not I want to win this championship this season. Yeah, are there other things? That's so interesting. So time management's a massive one. I'm not surprised by that. Were there other things that were surprising or alarming as you kept looking into why are coaches burning out?
Triggers is a massive one, Luke. So what triggers you? And it could be little things. Everybody, again, is an individual. Everybody's different. It could be an athlete walking into the locker room a minute late. It could be your assistant coach stepping in and saying something while you're mid-sentence. And it triggers you. You lose your train of thought, your stress levels raise, your blood pressure rises. So again, it comes back to a lack of self-awareness. Some coaches don't understand what triggers them, and sometimes it triggers them, they push it to the side and it builds and builds and builds, and they don't have those conversations with other people to allow that to ease and lower again. And one trigger leads into another, and it just grows and grows, and it's eventually going to explode at some stage. And that could be in front of your athletes. It could be when you're on the sideline and you're getting highly emotional with your athletes. Another trigger is match officials, whether it's your umpires, your referees. How do you react to a decision in game? We work on how to do what's your process in game, what's your process at half time. You're going in at half time in a soccer game, you're 3-0 down, performance has been really poor, emotions in your athletes are going to be really high. How do you control your emotions so you can make sure everybody remains focused and it's future focused going into the second half? And it's not all about what's just happened. You're controlled and you're supporting your athletes to look forward and build on the performance in the first half.
Coaches, I wanted to take a quick 60-second time out to tell you about 3 things. Number 1, if you want a free PDF of detailed notes on this episode or any episode of the podcast, subscribe to the Better Coaching newsletter for free today. Number 2, I want to invite you to join the Better Coaching community. It's a free online community of over 500 like-minded coaches from across sports. It's a place to interact with and learn from other coaches. We also have tons of free resources in the classroom section on leadership, culture, practice design, and more. Number 3, this podcast is fueled by RYG Athletics. RYG Athletics is a proud provider of Nike sports camps. We're always looking to add awesome coaches to our network of camp directors. If you're interested in learning more about this paid opportunity and becoming one of our Nike sports camp directors, we'd love to hear from you. You can find links to more information on all 3 things in the show details. Now back to the show.
The thing you shared there that resonated, that's again maybe a surprising issue of triggers or something that caused coaches to burn out. But as you said, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. To your point, there's these things, right? The assistant coach that does this, or the players that do this, and eventually they say, I just can't take it anymore, right? But you said something in there that I think gets to maybe the crux of the issue, and again ties back into self-awareness as a big piece of this, and your ability to stay in it, because it is hard. It's not just the trigger, it's the unwillingness to go have the courageous or hard conversation about that thing that bothers you. Go talk to the athlete. Ask, why are you late? It seems like you have a really tough time getting here on time. That actually, it frustrates me because I'm ready to start practice and being on time matters to me. Can you help me understand why it is that you're late each time? And that athlete may be like, sorry, and there's a very legitimate reason. Or they have a chance to say, hey, coach, my bad. I'm sorry. Like, I can change that. You know what I mean? Like, but not having that conversation, again, it just festers to the point where you explode or you say you can't take it anymore. Or the assistant coach example too. It's like, hey, especially if you're the head coach and the assistant coach, like, you've got to be the one to lead that conversation. Hey, when I'm sharing, please don't interrupt. Here's why, not just for my own sake, but for the sake of the athletes. We don't want to give them too much, right? We want to stay focused with our feedback and not be scattered and all over the place. But again, if you're not willing to have that conversation, it's probably not going to improve. It's going to fester. You're going to be so sick of it because coaching is, like you said, coaching is coaching. It's people all the time in every area, and people are hard to work with. Yeah.
100%. And it's relationships. So it's relationships with others. But most important, as a coach, if you're going to be there front and center consistently, it's your relationship with yourself and understanding self. What stresses me out? What gives me energy? How do I find time in my day to relax and re-energize for what's coming tomorrow? And one of the biggest struggles for coaches who are maybe having a losing season, they forget about self-awareness. That's the first thing to go when a coach is in stress situations. They forget about themselves. And as a coach, our priority is to make sure our athletes are looking after themselves. But when we're in stressful situations, the last person to look after is ourselves, which is the most important person of all.
Yeah, it is. As you were talking about that, I was a conversation or exchange I was having with a coach the other week came to mind too. He shared a question in a community of coaches. So, hey, I'm having trouble sleeping after games. Like, he can't wind down. He can't come down. I'm sure that you talk with, and I was actually reflecting too on when I was coaching some school teams the last couple of years. I didn't have trouble sleeping after games, but I would come home after coaching games, get home at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and I would just be like ravenous and hungry. and I would pound a bunch of food at like 9 p.m. And I'm like, I know this is a terrible idea, right? Like this is not good for my health, but I'm, it's like hungry, you're coming down or whatever it was. But I think those pieces of coaching and self-care are also really important and often don't get talked about a whole lot, like your sleep and your nutrition, because again, like those things aren't in a good spot. It's hard to show up well for your team and for your athletes. So yeah, I'd love to just hear your thoughts on those things too.
So again, it's supporting coaches in terms of self-awareness. So when we've played a game and we might play and we finish at say 8 p.m., we get home at 9 p.m. We support them to understand what can work for them to decompress. What reflective practice can we implement within that hour on the journey home that they can decompress, so when they walk in that front door, it's about family or it's about getting to bed and getting sleep. For some people, it's journaling. And whatever is going on in my mind, I'm still thinking about the game and that crucial decision. Player A should have done this. I put it on paper, I get it out, and I don't need to worry about it because it's written down and I can look at it again tomorrow morning. Or when I'm going home in the car, I put voice notes on my phone and I just talk. I talk through what occurred, I get it all out. So when I enter the front door, it's about me and my family and re-energizing and refilling my cup. And again, it's through experimentation, what works for that individual coach. So we support them in terms of, we've got a list of things, we want you to experiment. What works for you? There's different types of reflective tools. If you look at Rolf's framework, you've got what, so what, now what. 3 questions to ask yourself after a game. Or we can really simplify it. We use this with our academy coaches who work with under 8s, and it's the stop, start, continue model. So as soon as the session is over, okay, let's sit down our 3 coaches for 15 minutes and we'll reflect and we'll put everything to bed. What would we stop doing post-session? What did not work? What should we start implementing from the next session onwards? And what worked really well, and this is the most important one, what should we continue to do? And that allows us then, brilliant, let's write this down, let's capture it, and then there's no more worries. It's all captured and we can move on. And there's nothing in the back of that mind that's going to keep me awake at night.
Yeah, that's good. I think you've mentioned it a few times, just like you got to have a process for it, some routine, some system. And I think process system can scare people away sometimes, those words like, oh, that's a big deal. No, it's just, it can be really simple. Really simple. Just like you said, it's a 5-minute meeting after practice with your coaches. Start, stop, continue. For me, actually, one of the things, Stephen, that I've done for the last 6 years, I'm about to finish my 6th year, is every night before bed, I fill out a section of a 5-year journal. So on the journal page, for example, it says like January 1st, and then there's 5 sections on January 1st, one for each year. So like I started it in 2019 and I filled out January 1st, right on that day. And then I go to January 2nd. And then at the end of that year, I come back and on January 1st, I'm on the 2nd section of that page. So now it's January 1st, 2020, right? And I get to see what I wrote the last year on that same date. And it's like a few lines. It's probably like 3 or 4 sentences each night. But for the last like 6 years, almost without fail, I do that right before bed each night. And if not, I do it the next morning, etc. But it's been so helpful and therapeutic for me of just that process to be able to get out whatever's in my head. Sometimes it's just recounting my day. Sometimes it's processing something that's frustrating, whatever it is, but just be able to write it down, close that, and go to bed. And then too, also practice, like it's so cool to be able to look back on the last year too, because in 2024, I finished the 5th year of that first journal. And so I got to look back on, the last 4 years every night when I was writing, like, oh, what was happening in life and what was I going? And it's just amazing too, because that 5th year, I'm like, wow, life is so different right now than it was the first year I was filling out this journal. My problems that year are so far from what my problems are right now, or the things that frustrated me then, they don't, all those things, just that small, simple routine and process for me to be able to get the stuff out. It's been so helpful. And
can I just say the commitment from you, that is phenomenal. So bravo to you.
Thanks. I'll also say too, I should give credit where it's due. I think the only reason it worked so well for me and that really stuck is I started after I read James Clear's Atomic Habits. I feel like everyone's probably read that book at this point. It's massive. But he talks about habit stacking. And I was in this really good habit of making my bed each morning at the time. I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my bed and I'm going to take this journal. I'm going to put it right in front of my pillow with the pen right on it. So like when I get in bed each night, it's there. Like I can't avoid it. And that was probably like the first few years. Total honestly, I'm not in a great habit of making my bed right now. We'll try to get there again. But that's actually part of what helped me with that personally, is that I just stacked it on top of an existing habit. And I just made it like hard for me to avoid it. I put it right there on the bed. So when I got in bed, it was there. I was going to do it. There was nights where I like fell asleep on the couch, went into bed at 2 a.m. and was like, I got to do my journal right now. Like just because it became a habit and I put it right there. I don't know that I'm super special with commitment, but I was really intentional about how do I put it into my routines and habits to just make it way easier for me to do it. Because if you make it hard for yourself to do it, you're probably not going to do it.
I suppose that comes back to the process. So if we're making our process extremely difficult in stressful situations, that's the first thing we're going to drop. And I think coaches' processes are so important. But one thing coaches need to do with their process is to be accountable to that. And how do you do that? For us, we recommend sharing our process with our athletes so they understand what we're trying to do. So when we're giving feedback, this is how we as coaches will give feedback. When we're planning, this is our process in terms of our planning. And that's showcasing you and your authentic self. So when you're not being authentic, your players will call you out. And who better to do it than our athletes? So I think in terms of any coaching process, accountability is so important. Some coaches are comfortable sharing it with their athletes and giving ownership. Others, one particular coach actually has an accountability manager who is his wife. And when he's not being his authentic self, when he's answering text messages unusually than he would normally when he's not stressed, she calls him out, holds him accountable. They sit down, they might have a 5-minute conversation, and she gets to the nitty-gritty of what's aggravating or stressing this coach out, and they talk it out, and everything is fine, and they go forward. And having that accountability piece, again, is really important, because we're not always self-aware, but having someone else to call us out is really important.
Yeah, it takes some humility too. You got to be willing to ask it, express it, some vulnerability. Hey, this is how I want to be. I recognize I won't always show up like that. I'm giving you permission to speak into it. Yeah, that takes some courage and some humility. That's not an easy thing to do, but I agree it's important to have that. And I would say too, if you're a head coach with assistants, the relational dynamics that you can create in a positive way by saying that to them, like, hey, this is how I want to show up. You guys have permission here to call me out when I'm not showing up like that. Let's figure out how to do it. No, I'm not going to I would appreciate it if you don't blast me in front of our team, right? Like, what's the healthy way we're going to do it? During a timeout, let's talk, right? What are the ways we're going to say it? I think, just like some other people, voices that you trust that can help us come back to the ground when we're not in the state that we want to be in or know is the best for us and for our team. And I actually kind of want to go back to something you briefly touched on earlier. You were talking about, just coaches, triggers, emotions. You were talking about halftime too. What are some of the processes that you've seen coaches implement as far as within games to help them keep themselves emotionally regulated, focused on the moment and what's coming in the future instead of, again, like we talked about, it's easy to get sucked in what happened in the past instead of right now and what's coming up. What can coaches do to get in that state of mind and stay there?
So I get asked this a lot, actually, and there's some great research out there, especially in the halftime space. Eamon Devlin with his business Minute 9 focus on that, and they've been with Real Madrid and other high-performance environments. But I always bring it back to the very famous manager, Sir Alex Ferguson of Manchester United. And when you watch him on the sideline, he's chewing gum consistently. And that was his way of managing stress. And when he gets really stressed, you can see his jaw clenching as he's chewing gum. And as his career evolved, he started with a lollipop. Why did he have a lollipop? I consistently ask these coaches. Because in the moment of him putting his hand to his mouth to take the lolly out, he thinks about what he was going to say. So instead of just shouting and screaming and maybe saying something negative to an athlete, by the time he's taken the lolly out of his mouth, he's thought about what language he's going to use and he's reframed it, and maybe he's asked a question. And that's just a simple tool. There's other tools in terms of what you can use. We talk to coaches, again, relates back to their process, having a set list of questions. So what ifs? What if this happens in the first 5 minutes of the game? What could you do to support your athletes in games? So if it's a basketball game, it's end to end, it's really fast, it's really sharp, things are going wrong immediately, your whole game plan is going out the window. What can you do differently? And building in what ifs to every scenario and really honing in on your planning so you can regulate your emotions. So asking those what ifs is really important. And that relates back to your game plans and your game model. So everybody's what ifs might be slightly different, but getting coaches to reflect on what if this happens? What if you're winning 40-0 at halftime in a basketball game? What are you going to do? What if you're 27 points down at halftime? What will you do? And making sure you're not putting your emotions on your athletes because they're already in stressful situations. And your job is to facilitate them to enjoy the game and play at their best.
Just the power of considering how you want to respond before the situation occurs is so powerful. I've made a habit of doing that with teams that I coach. And it makes a massive difference in how they respond and the massive difference in our ability as coaches to try to hold them accountable to a standard that they said they wanted to meet in XYZ situation. But I think what you said is so powerful for coaches to take that and flip it, put it back on ourselves. Well, in blank situation, how are you going to respond? When a player gets a red card or a technical foul or sent off, what are you going to say? How do you want to respond then? I think that the importance of that just can't be understated because, again, considering it beforehand, and then even back to your lollipop example, having something too that can just slow you down in the moment instead of just reacting can give you that 1-2 second break to respond and make an intentional choice, use some intentional words. I think is so important because that's really hard to do. It's hard, especially in competition or just even within the flow of your practices. To slow down and to be intentional instead of just react is the road less traveled.
No, completely agree. And sometimes it's the most simplest thing that might work. I was at a conference a few years ago where a coach was working with an elite team and he got a cancer diagnosis. So he was very ill at the time. And every time he had chemotherapy, they gave him tea and toast post-treatment. And the tea and toast was such a relief because he knew it was over. And you know yourself, when you're not feeling great, toast can taste amazing. And he shared this story with his athletes. And they were playing in a major final and they conceded, I think it was 2 or 3 goals really, really early in the game. And their forward ran 100 meters back to the goalkeeper and just looked him in the eye and said, tea and toast. Because it's never as bad as it seems, and they went on to win the game. So trying to make things as simple as possible for athletes, as well as ourselves as coaches, that when we're in stressful situations, something really, really short and simple could trigger us to get back in the right mindset.
Yeah, that's awesome. At the Nike sports camps we run in the summers, we teach athletes the concept of a reset button. It's inspired George Kittle, an NFL tight end, has a video clip at a press conference where he's talking about it. He draws a big red button on a piece of tape on his wrist. And when he feels himself getting too high or too low, he just touches that. And it's just a reminder to come back to this present moment. I love a shared one too, though, like you said with that example, like a phrase or word or something you do that's shared between. That was really an individual basis, that reset button. But then to have something as a team or as players that we can use with each other, bring us back here as this shared meaning, I think is really, really powerful and important.
Yeah, and another example would be the Irish men's rugby team. Going into the last World Cup, they were the number 1 team in the world. And every opportunity they had for a breather, so maybe there was a penalty and there's a break in play, there'd be a huddle, everybody links arms, closes their eyes and focuses on their breathing. 7 seconds in, hold for 7, let it out for 7. And it just allows them to refocus, and they're doing it collectively, and then they break and they go again. No matter what's happening in the game, whether they were winning or losing, it gave them an opportunity to refocus and get on with the game.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and I think if you're a coach listening, it's like start somewhere, start small, bring your athletes into this too. Ask them what makes sense for them. Hey, how do you guys want to all come together, come back to this moment? Maybe it's a huddle where you're breathing. Maybe it's this other routine that we do at a timeout or halftime, whatever it is. Like, yeah, bring them in. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be fancy, but something, and explain why. Why are we doing this? I think the athletes really appreciate that piece of it too. We talked earlier about just the importance of a coach having someone who's holding them accountable, and whether that's a coach, a spouse, players in some capacity. I think one of the pain points for many coaches is the struggle of holding their athletes accountable to the standards of their team or the expectations that have been set, hopefully have been set and explicitly communicated. Sometimes that's the real issue. Hey, they don't know what your expectation is, but assuming that you've put the work in to set expectations, to set values, to set standards, hopefully with their input, then it's this hard piece of holding those athletes to that standard. Talk to me about how you've seen coaches do that well. How are you coaching coaches to do that? Because I think that's a common pain point for a lot of coaches. How do I actually hold them to these standards?
So every coach I've come across, and even myself, everybody does this differently. So individuals are different, but teams, every team is going to be different in terms of how they have accountability. For my current senior men's team that we have at the moment, we have a really great leadership group. There's 8 in the leadership group. They range from 18 years of age to 30 years of age. So there's lots of life experience in there. At the start of every season, we come up with our key core values for the team, and it's 3. We keep it simple. We don't, you know what I mean? Some teams like 7 or 8, we keep it to 3. And they manage those values. So when someone is living those values positively, they highlight that in front of everybody. And when someone is not living those values, they're the first ones to hold that individual accountable. And each one of those leaders does it in a different way. Luke, for example, might be pulling an athlete to the side and go, listen, we know you were out last night partying. That's not the way we operate. Or Stephen might do it differently. He'll say it in front of the whole locker room and say, Luke, you shouldn't have been out last night. We're in at 6 a.m. You're late. You know, you're disheveled, etc., etc. So everybody does it differently. But it comes back to what's driving the group. What is the purpose of this group? Why are we showing up every day to perform? When you are able to support your athletes to figure out collectively what is their purpose, they will drive that standard because they'll own it. Everybody does that differently. Some coaches do it really well in terms of, okay, let's do a workshop at the start of the season. Individually, what's really important to you? Sports related, that's human related, because that's all about your family or outside of sports. So let's focus on the sports stuff. What's common with the rest of the group? This one is really, really important. They want to operate in a team environment. So there's one, teamwork. There's a core value for us. So when someone's not operating in terms of teamwork, let's hold them accountable. And when players are holding other players accountable, doesn't matter what the performances are like on the pitch, you're winning as a coach, because you've set amazing standards and your players are driving it. Some coaches aren't comfortable with this when I say it. Your role as a coach is to become redundant. You share all your knowledge and experience with your team, and you become redundant, and you're there then to facilitate them to keep growing. And then if you're growth set minded, you'll go and learn new things, you'll adapt, and you'll drive the standards on again. Or you'll move on to a different group.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I resonate with that in that, I probably did it better some seasons than others, or do it better some than others. But yeah, to get to that point where it's like, yeah, they don't need me. Like when we walk out onto the court for that game, like my work is done before we got here. They know what to do and how to do it and how we do things. And even, from the culture standpoint, they are the ones that really own that. That's really powerful.
But if
Yeah.
you look at professional sports, Luke, for example, some coaches are very animated on the sidelines and they're an entertainer. They want to entertain the crowd as well. They feed off that. And some of them perceive that the players feed off that. But every athlete is different. Some athletes don't appreciate their coaches being animated on the sideline. We ask coaches to try different things. So instead of standing on the sideline or sitting in the dugout, pick a seat up instead. Try that different viewpoint. And you get an aerial view, you see different positional things. You can then give better analysis or better feedback to your athletes. If you look at Rugby Union, for example, the head coach is always up in the top of the stand. American football, they're always on the sideline. But what are you missing? As a coach, what are you missing? Experiment. It may work, it may not work, but it's going to give you a different perception of your behaviors and your athletes' behaviors.
Yeah, that's good. Changing the vantage point can be powerful. I would also maybe add there, film yourself coaching and watch it back. That's uncomfortable. Yeah, you're going to watch yourself coach, and having done it, you want, oh my gosh, I said that? I act like that? It's to our earlier conversation around self-awareness. Nothing will make you self-aware faster than watching yourself coach.
Yeah, and I completed a master's 3 years ago in the University of Limerick, a master's in applied sports coaching, and one of the modules is self-analysis. I had been doing it previously in terms of wearing a microphone every time I coach and connecting it to my voice notes. And for my reflective practice, driving home in the car, I listen back to my session. And in my planning, I usually have 3 questions I'm going to ask the team based on what games or drills we might be doing at that particular time. And I'm listening back and I'm like, oh my goodness, I never asked that question. Or I've asked that question and Luke, our goalkeeper, what an answer he's given. But I wasn't ready for such a confident and self-assured answer. I did not have a follow-up question to accentuate and build on it. So then in my planning for the next session, I have to take account in that. And it's a really, really good reflective tool. Some coaches understand that they have idiosyncrasies. They might say, yes, or, yeah, that's great. In terms of their praise, that's really good. Players don't appreciate that. That's not what kind of feedback is, okay, you did good. What about my body position coach when I receive the ball? So when we're given feedback, is it cheerleading or is it really honed in analysis and you're giving structured feedback to your athletes so they can grow and develop every time you do it? So by recording yourself, whether it's just a microphone or video analysis, it's really eye-opening in terms of how you communicate with your athletes and yourself and your management team.
Yeah, that's good. It is powerful. It is uncomfortable, though. It's even just uncomfortable hearing yourself talk, You get used to it after a little while. But one more question, kind of unrelated to what we've talked about, but I'm really curious because you're supporting coaches in a lot of different areas, a lot of different levels. How are you supporting and helping coaches, or how are you counseling them? What are you recommending for them when they're in the middle of a terrible season where their team's getting beat? Maybe their job is not very secure. Maybe it's secure, but it's just a tough year, not having much success on the field or the court, whatever it is. They're losing. It's stressful. How are you, what can we do well there as coaches? Because it's a hard spot that I think every coach has either been in or will be in at some point.
It's a tough one. Those conversations are extremely difficult. And again, it comes back to the individual. How can they accept feedback? So I try and bring it back to purpose. Why are you coaching in the first place? Are you coaching to get the trophy at the end of the season? Because let's be realistic here. 1% get a trophy at the end of the season. So what does success look like for this group right now at this time? Success may be at the end of the season we are 5-11. Do you know what I mean? Next season, because we have players coming in, we're going to be 11-5. But right now, what does success look like for this group? And bringing it all back to your purpose. Why are you doing this job in the first place? Is it to win every single game? Because if you're just there for an outcome, you're missing out on such good relationships. And let's be honest, coaching is a journey. And the best part of coaching is the journey. It's a wave. It's up and down. So it's bringing them back to why they're there in the first place. Bringing them back to, well, this is your process. Is it currently working? can we restructure something? Did the result come from your poor feedback or a lack of analysis based on the previous game? And getting them to focus on what they can control, their process, how they give feedback to their athletes. And then we ask them as a coach, now bring that into how you coach. Ask your athletes to reflect. Are they reflecting on the right things? And if I'm an athlete, and I was one much like yourself, we'd always watch our own clips before we'd watch team clips. But is that the right way to analyse whether we're winning or losing? And most of us only analyse when we're losing. But what about when we're winning? Are we analysing when we're winning? Every time I ask a coach that, they're never really doing their homework when they're having success. So when things go wrong, they don't understand why.
Yeah, that's good. And that principle applies in so many areas of life, and especially coaching. I think as coaches, we know, like, we got to tell them when they're getting it right. We want them to keep doing it. Are we being self-reflective? Hey, when are you getting it right as a coach? Because we want to keep doing that. And then to your earlier point around, in the midst of the storm that comes sometimes inevitably will find you as a coach, those tough seasons, coming back to your purpose, clearly defining success. One of my friends, Tyler Costin, he talks about victory and defining your own victories. That's what you were saying there, right? Like, what's success look like now for this team at the current place we're at? Maybe it's just XYZ, right? So I think, yeah, that really resonates and something that any coach can take. Hey, you got to define those victories. You got to set what success is. It's not that we don't have high standards, but we also have to take an honest look at the current situation and hold unwavering belief that it can get better. You know, those two things have got to be something we make a practice of.
I think the most important thing, Luke, is to name it. That is a coachable moment right there. Like you said it there, when an athlete's having success. That's a coachable moment. Let's highlight that to the group. You know, most athletes don't know why something is working unless we highlight a coachable moment. And when things are going wrong, there's a coachable moment. And I use that language with coaches. I use that language with athletes. It's not a negative, it's not a positive, but it's a moment.
Yeah. Helping athletes see what led to success is so powerful. Oftentimes they don't see it. They just see the success at the end. As coaches, we saw the 5 passes that led to that moment, or the spacing, whatever that happened to it. Yeah, it's so good. We got to do that. Stephen, this has been awesome. Before we wrap it up and hop off, just share with the audience where they can learn more about you and your work or get in contact.
I'm anything but consistent, Luke. So you can find us on nogaspc.com or nogaspc on any social media. Instagram is probably one of the most popular ones because it's easy to scroll and see what we've been up to. Check out the website, see where we're working with, and hopefully we can connect with coaches across the world.
Yeah, amazing. Hey, Stephen, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks for the work you're doing to support coaches. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me, Luke. Love the podcast.
Coaches, thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. To learn more or connect with the guests from this episode, check out the links in the show details. And if you want a free PDF of detailed notes on this episode or any episode of the podcast, subscribe to the Better Coaching newsletter today for free. We'd also love to see you in our free Better Coaching online community. It's a great place to learn and connect with like-minded coaches from across sports. And finally, if you're interested in becoming one of our Nike Sports Camp directors, we'd love to talk with you about this paid opportunity. You can head to the show details for links to learn more about all of those things. Thanks for listening to the podcast.